Welcome back to the Wine Tech Insiders Podcast, episode 31. No glass bottles and prices are on the rise. We've got a lot of topics. Jonathan and I were just at Pro Wine, and people were talking about glass bottles. Prices of wines are going up, and producers can't find bottles in many cases. There is some good news. Global consumption did increase last year by 4% in volume and 16% in value, which means people are buying more quality wines. But production was down 1% because a lot of premium regions like Bordeaux, Champagne, and had problems with the harvest. It was a bad harvest for them. But there's a lot of kind of uncertainty after many years of reliable prices, reliable this, reliable that. This is another kind of uncertain thing. Laurie, what are you hearing? What's going on with bottle supply? Obviously, you're coming in with labels and images, but I'm sure people are talking about bottle supply too.
Absolutely. So Oushinery does, as you know, bottle shots, so product images without the need of physical samples. So sometimes wineries start getting the visual content ahead of time. They supposedly know their glass bottle, the capsule and the wine, and they have everything ready to go. But what we've been seeing is the uncertainty until the very last minute of what kind of bottle shape is going to be available. Some, I think, compromise that would have not been made even a few years ago of just we used to have more slightly more iconic bottle shape with maybe a punt that was a little bit heavier or just more interesting, or even in some cases a custom embossing on the shoulders. And right now this is impossible to get. It's just too complicated, too costly, and they just forego that altogether, just to get the liquid into the bottle. Securing the glass in enough quantity of the glass has been challenging for some of the smaller customers, but also some of the bigger ones. We're seeing they are actually they used to have a certain a big wine group would use maybe 5 or 6 or 5 maximum bottle shapes, maybe 2 different types of Burgundy, a low shoulder and a high shoulder, and then maybe a tapered Bordeaux and a regular, and then one extra shape, let's say for sparkling. But we're seeing though is an explosion. Is okay, well, we're going to put all the Pinot Grigio in that shape that we can kind of fit, and then Sauvignon Blanc is going to be another one because that's what we could find. So suddenly the same producer would have I'm not saying 20 bottle shapes, but just the variety, the sheer amount that way. But I still need to work with the labels that they don't want to reprint with a different die cut. So it's a lot of juggling and compromise. And from what we see, and some of those very last minute, crunch for time, some of those decisions need to be made almost the day off or the week prior, depending on the cases. Yeah.
Nick, should wine probably be worth more? Is it too cheap? Are price rises, even if there's a reason behind it, should consumers expect some price rises? That the price of wine goes up. Is this a good thing, or what's your take on this?
So I'm guessing that consumers expect everything to go up in price at the moment, given that shortages of everything from gas that is required to make bricks and is required for the production of glass, which has been, if you like, prioritized for the consumer in France over the course of this last winter, and I think is now being switched during the summer months to manufacturing. But as a result of which there have been really severe shortages across every single market, and clearly the materials that are used by winemakers for bottling are far from being an exception. So I think the cost of wine probably will go up a bit. Obviously, depending on the market you're in, excise, tax, duty accounts for a very significant proportion of the value of the wine at the lower end anyway. I would imagine that we'll hopefully see a lot less heavy, big-shouldered bottles, because I suspect that it will. I suspect that a significant amount of money goes into those heavier, bigger bottles, and I wouldn't be surprised if suppliers are going to be short of those sorts of styles of container, more so than standard bottles. So I don't know. I don't know that it's a. I don't know that inflation is a good thing, particularly, David. I think that's, but it is what it is, and we've got it for a while. And until the global supply chains reshape themselves into whatever they're going to be, then I think that those increased costs of raw materials, of labor, and of distribution are going to be with us for some time, unfortunately. Yes, and I saw that there's much talk of closures being the great route forward for saving money. That may be the case. What we're also seeing, however, is more producers wanting a closer link with the consumer, looking at ways in which they can capture more downstream value of their product, and therefore they rather rely on closures to put their NFTs on the bottle, and to be able to track those bottles, to be able to put them on the global blockchain, to be able to manage downstream value and authenticity and all of those good things. So, I don't suppose it really matters what the closure is made out of, and I don't think it really matters that much, full stop, other than it's quite convenient as a carrier of some of those technologies. So I suspect at the sort of the higher end of the market, we will not see closures going away anytime soon, but we may see more wax dipping and that sort of stuff.
I mean, so you mentioned wax dipping. So I'm relocated to Portugal for a few months, and the amount of bottles of wine dipped in wax, natural wax, is outstanding, especially if you step like a little bit out of the more commercial brand. I've never seen so many different colors of wax, different kind of like way to dip it. Like, it's just, it's been very cool to see. As I don't know if it's a trend or just like already a way to get rid of those capsules and to just differentiate yourself on the sustainability and recycling front. But it's been, on a pure visual standpoint, I've been really much enjoying it.
Jonathan, I want to get you in. What are you hearing about all of this?
Well, I think it's very interesting times. I mean, the pandemic we thought was disruptive, but it was really only, in some, you say only, disruptive to sales and distribution. It didn't really disrupt production. And now, once we're seeing coming out of the pandemic, as the world has opened up at different speeds, we're seeing now a disruption on the production side, and that is, it feels 10 times more significant than it was on the marketing and distribution. You could solve marketing and distribution with hopping on Zoom calls and sending the bottles by mail. That you were able to make your sales that way. And now if you can't even get the wine into the container, that's a whole different set of problems to deal with. And so, if you could say that the disruption is one of the best sources of innovation, and that might be this perfect storm coming to the wine industry that is throwing out all these rules that were optimized over 30, 40 years of globalization, optimizations, tweaking of the global supply chains, that is now falling away, and people are having to find out new innovative ways on the production side, which would just not have been, that would have been like treated as gimmicks and just blown off by the establishment a few years ago, and now the establishment is the ones that are resorting to these, and that's going to I think have an impact on the uptake. Then it also the best thing to drive change in any industry is money, and with the costs going up, that's going to open up reasons to innovate. And it's also going to open the door for new companies to do new things where it was just too optimized before for them to find a niche or a toehold. I think one of the most exciting products along this line is like at London Wine Fair, you'll be able to see is Win in Rome. They are claiming to have the first paper bottle on the market, and it's not entirely paper. It's not Tetra Pak, but rather it's more built on a bag and box concept. But it looks like a bottle. It is, you can pour it like a bottle. It's not that you're holding a handle up and then pressing a spigot. And I think like they, even if they're not the first, they're they are one of the first, and I think they're known for other products as well. So I think they really have a chance of capturing the the spirit of the moment and bringing something to market, especially in the UK. If they're if it's really struggling to get bottles, this is a really lightweight way. We've talked about drink printing and the cost of, I think Laurie, you mentioned this on a previous podcast, the cost of like shipping, putting something in glass is that you're actually having to first ship the glass to the bottling facility even before you ship the glass out with the bottle, with the wine in it to destination. And a bag and bottle, so to speak, or it's a really innovative approach to try it that could solve a couple issues at the same time. So it's obviously a struggling, a challenging time for people, but the conditions are also right for innovation and for new players to come in and provide solutions that fit the needs, are more sustainable. And there's going to be some interesting, I think some really exciting things that come out over the next few years.
I'm just curious to see how it's going to work timeline wise, right? Like everything that's pertaining to, and that's not my expertise, but like more like agricultural cycle and cycles. Sorry, like right now, I just see a lot of the news are about the wheat in Ukraine that's not making it out, and like sunflowers and all like rapeseed and all that things. It just, the problem is like the wine is highly cyclical in following the year, right? Like it's an agricultural business, and so anything that is, it's just like that's an extra challenge. Like even if the technology is being built, like how does that work with what's happening now? And I don't have the answer, but I can only imagine like that extreme challenge. Nick, have you seen any of this like questions already happening, or like tough decision, or like are you hearing it from the grapevine?
No, I mean, I totally agree with Jonathan that the kind of the bag in the, the wine in the box type sort of market is definitely going to grow. I think it already has grown quite a lot, hasn't it, over the last couple of years. And it's convenient, and for a significant chunk of the market, does it really need to be in a bottle? So I completely agree with that, and I think that will continue. Yeah,
I'm seeing more and more of this, and we're seeing it like quite a bit with our clients. Is a rather new format, which is like a magnum container, like size, so 1.5 liter, but it's a pouch with a spigot. So it's a bag in a box that is not 3 liter, but 1.5 without the box. So it's just a bag, that is like branded. I guess it's like, which also makes sense. At one point, it's like, also, do we need the box, right? Like the box is purely, we're talking about the capsule being like a branding ornamental. And as a designer, I love it, but technically it has also no purpose aside from being like neatly stackable. So we're seeing really more and more of these bag without a box, 1.5 liters. I can't remember. I think they call it super pouch. Or I think they should come up with a better name. But like we're seeing more and more of those packaging out of Australia right now. And I'm personally drinking some of Portuguese wine like that, and it fits great in the fridge. Like 1.5 liters in a pouch just goes anywhere in the fridge versus like like a bag-in-a-box that can be more challenging. So it's also, it's been fun.
What do I mean, is that the future, or is the desire for producers to build and create brands, just as in any other market, fundamentally going to be a more significant underlying driver?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the answer. I think it's a bit of like testing. From what we see, it's right now more with like not affordable, but like entry market wines. Like we're not talking like super premium. One of the selling point, and that often really much mentioned on the front, is like just like a bag in a box. It stays fresh up to 3 weeks after opening. Like like you kind of also like sell on like its light, and like so there's a lot of it like about like just like the technology of that tap, a spigot, like you mentioned, Jonathan, and how it's winning for the consumer that way. But yeah, like I don't see it nearly. I mean, it's a very different opening like a magnum bottle with all like the ceremonial and everything, and opening a big pouch. Technically the same quantity of wine, but it's almost like we're not talking the same product, right? Like it's just very,
no,
very
it's a different, it's a market, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I can't imagine opening a 1962 pouch like I did a bottle of wine last week.
Well, Nick, if you ever bring a pouch to dinner at somebody else's house, then something's changed.
But then you don't show anyone. You just put it in the decanter. I mean, that could be a test, though, right?
Well, that is an interesting way to look at it, Laurie, because we do that with soaps, right? Soaps and detergents. You maybe buy a plastic container for your soap, or we have a refillable hand soap dispenser, and we just buy bags. We don't buy plastic containers that we throw away. It's just a bag, which is admittedly still plastic, but it's less material than otherwise. And if all you're doing is trying to get it from the store to your decanter, I mean, the Italians do it great as well. They just take the vessel to the local cooperative, get the gas pump handle, pump it full, and take it back to the restaurant. There is no there is no wastage in that life cycle, which is it's really elegant.
I mean, I guess in a way, Thomas Jefferson was probably the first eco warrior insofar as he shipped whole barrels from Bordeaux, didn't he, to DC, to wherever he was based, to then kind of bottle as he went, I guess.
Interesting.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for joining us for a discussion about glass bottles and prices on the rise. That was episode 31 of the Wine Tech Insiders. I'd like to thank the insiders, Laurie from Oushinery, Jonathan from Bottlebooks, and Nick from Wine Owners. See you all in a few weeks.
Thank you, David.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.